Hello, everyone. This is Maya with Trials with Maya Z, and today I'm with Orit Rinder, a clinical research expert, a patient advocate as well. Um, Orit actually found me on LinkedIn some months ago or weeks ago. We started this interesting conversation around my interesting topic, standard of care, and she actually told me some really interesting stories that I thought we should share with the rest, like with all of you. So, Orit, first of all, welcome. And please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you for inviting me. My name's Orit Rinder, and as Maya said, I'm into clinical research for many years. I started my medical background in working for the medical center, and I worked there for a few years. And then somehow during COVID started, and I got involved with a clinical research company, and I did a trial there and I really liked it. And meanwhile, between the medical center and the clinical research, I opened up an NGO for a rare disease for Gorlin syndrome. So I was very involved in that, and I was invited to different places to speak, different conferences. And now, for the past 2 years, I've been working also on clinical trials.
Very
And
interesting.
yeah, I love it.
There, Orit, I wanted to one of the things that really struck me was the fact that you combine the patient advocate's expertise with the clinical research expertise. And I wonder, like, when you're working on a daily basis in clinical research, but at the same time you're working on this NGO. So have you been in the situation to compare these both different worlds? Are there actually different worlds in the first hand?
It's totally different world. Patient is face to face. In clinical research, you see numbers and you see Excel charts
Hmm.
or CRMs,
Yeah.
and it's different. I like the one on one. I like talking to people. I like helping people. I found that out when I worked at the medical center. That I was the first target, first point of a meeting when the patient came to the clinic. They were talking to me first. So I
Hmm.
was like their in quotes. I was their babysitter. So that's what I liked about the patient advocacy. I like helping, I like seeing the outcome. And the clinical research, of course, is having a good outcome for the patients, trying to find
Yeah.
something that will help them.
Yeah. Do you think that your patient advocacy activity helped you in any way to conduct clinical research much better, like to impact clinical trials much more?
Yes, I saw it from the other side of the table.
Yeah.
People
Any
who,
examples, like on top of your head?
like, I know of a person that she needs a medicine for she has the disease. She has Gordon syndrome. And in the States, the medicine that they take is very, very expensive. It gets to like $15,000 a month.
Mm.
And if she does the clinical trial, she doesn't have to pay anything. She gets it free.
Mhm. Yeah.
So she volunteered for the clinical research to be in the trial. And for 4 years, she had free medicine. She went every month and they did her checkups and they gave her her bottle of medicine. It's like a chemo based pill.
Hmm.
And that's the only way she could pay. Otherwise, I mean, she works
To be
in
able.
a drugstore. She can't afford
Hmm.
$15,000 a month.
From what I understand, from your perspective, clinical trials is another opportunity for patients. Is that the way you see clinical trials?
Definitely, definitely. It helps them because, especially in certain countries, they get it for free, the medicine. Like
Hmm.
European countries, when you have national health, then you can get it for free. But when you're in America and you don't have health insurance,
And that motivates patients to join more like in clinical trials.
right.
Actually, that was the thing that really started the conversation between you and me. The fact that this local standard of care really defines in one way or another whether patients will be more willing or less willing to join a clinical trial. And like this example is exactly that. If you don't have access to another alternative, then you're more willing to join a clinical trial. In this case, that was in the States, but like sometimes that's not the case. And if, for example, you have another alternative through standard of care, then you're less motivated to join a clinical trial. So it's very interesting to see how the different country realities also influence the clinical trials outcomes. Very interesting. Do you think that clinical trials, I mean, how much clinical trials are aligned with the patient's expectations and their reality?
How much? Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So, how much do you think clinical trials are aligned with patients' reality, their needs, and expectations?
I think they're getting better, but I do think the people that are doing the clinical trials have to get to know the other side, have to get to
Mhm.
know the patients. I know there was a clinical trial from my disease, from the Gordon syndrome disease in London last year for like 6 months, and I know patients were brought from all over. They were brought from Italy. They were trying to get a lot of
Mm.
people to come, and some of them couldn't come on some of the times. It was either a holiday or they had a wedding or their job wouldn't let them go or all kinds of excuses,
Mm.
not excuses, but life.
Like
Life was
real life,
happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, the clinical trial side has to think more of the patient side. As it is, they're having a hard life. So,
And you as being a patient advocate, have you ever consulted the company on how they should design their trial, their schedule? What's your experience with that?
yeah, sure. The one I did in England, they wanted some feedback. They asked for feedback, very,
Mhm.
very intense feedback. I was quite shocked, actually. It was really nice. It was a good feeling. It was a big company, a big pharmaceutical company, and they actually invited me to talk in on a roundtable type of thing in Zoom, online.
Mhm.
But what should be better? How should we better it? And what else can we do? So I do think that the clinical research companies do have to ask the patients what what can they do to help them, because as it is, they're visiting doctors every week, every month, whenever, and their life isn't as easy it is for somebody who's never been to a doctor.
Hmm.
So
And do you think that by participating in these roundtables, did it have any impact on the clinical trial at the end?
yeah, I think so. It has things have changed, definitely
Yeah.
changed. It takes
Nice.
time, but it definitely changed. Yeah, I
Hmm.
can feel it when I go to conferences and people talk to me. I can definitely feel it.
That's interesting. And at what stage do companies engage with people like you to provide feedback?
Um, like right now, there is a new trial that's coming out, and I was called. The NGO was called. If we have
Mhm.
patients that would be
Uh-huh.
willing.
Hmm.
My particular patients, they're a bit tired of not having clinical trials. It's a hard disease. It's a hard disease for
Yeah.
them, and it's hard. It's really really hard to get them to come. I have a hospital up north in Israel. They said you don't even have to do an appointment. Just come. Just give me your phone number, your name, and just turn up. They're asked for a maxillofacial to check the teeth because that's part of the disease. And I've only been able to get like 5 6 people, and there's like
Yeah.
300 people. And
Hmm.
like people say, oh, it's too far. Oh, I don't want to go up north. And now with the problem with the war, it's even worse. Nobody wants to go up north because that's where the war is.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another problem. You have all kinds of problems.
But at the same time, like last time you told me about this story where a patient had to travel actually to the States actually to
Right.
participate in the clinical trial, and the company was ready to pay for that.
Yeah, so that company was absolutely amazing. We had a patient that she was invited to a clinical trial in Chicago, and they flew her in every 30 days. I mean, just the flights and the hotels were at least $5,000 a month,
Hmm.
and that's something that obviously a normal patient cannot afford to do. The
Yeah, of
average the
course.
average person,
Hmm.
but they really made an effort. And if I'm not mistaken, they must have had about 150 people on this trial.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was a good number for a trial,
Yeah.
and the medicine's on the market now, and the medicine is working.
No, that's great news.
So that's worth it. But the medicine's very expensive. Again, if you live in the States, you can't afford that medicine. But if you're living
Oh,
in Israel or in Europe or anywhere that has national health, you can afford it.
because it's already reimbursed.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's subsidized by the country.
How come it's not reimbursed in the States? I mean, I know there is no national coverage, but then you have the insurance companies. So if you're insured by like any of the companies, for example, wouldn't they cover for this treatment?
Some of them do. Some of them do have reimbursed, but a lot of them, if they don't match the exact criteria that's written on the piece of paper, if you're not 49 and a half years old or something, I'm just making up
Yeah,
numbers, If you don't have one gray hair, then you can't do the trial, It's like, those I'm just making, but
so it's not
that's
only the crazy eligibility criteria in the clinical trial, but also the same eligibility criteria for being reimbursed for a treatment.
exactly if we're getting it subsidized or reimbursed. Or I know I have friends that are in the with the syndrome,
Mm.
and they are getting reimbursed. But you
Yeah.
always have somebody. You always have a few that aren't getting reimbursed or can't even afford to do it, even if they're not getting reimbursed. So
Very interesting. What's the motivation of such a patient to actually travel like so many miles every single month, especially having a disease? Like, why would
they're
this
tired.
patient do it?
First of all, first of all, the Gorlin syndrome disease
Yeah.
is a multiple organ disease. It's not just one
Mm,
doctor. You're going to a dentist. You're going to the heart doctor. You're going to the neurologist. You're going to the gynecologist if you're a woman. You're going to the eye ophthalmologist. You're going to neurosurgeon. It's a whole list on this
mm,
particular disease, and it's tiring. And if there's something that can help a little bit, then why not?
yeah. But would the clinical, in this case, would the clinical trial offer this multidisciplinary kind of management and control, or they're just tackling one particular thing?
One particular, just the skin
Yeah.
part. That's
So
it.
you
Yeah,
had,
skin
yeah.
cancer.
So basically, the patient still has to do all these
Oh
doctor
yeah,
visits, and I guess that this is something that the company should expect, that it's not going to be the trial burden and all this travel, but
yeah.
there's still the same burden of going to these different doctors.
Right, right.
Handling, yeah, that's actually a very good point. That sometimes we forget that disease comes with other comorbidities and other like side effects, and they require other type of management, extra like time spent on that, extra, let's say, like medications as well.
Right.
So, and also when you have a family, it makes it like even more complicated.
Exactly. If you're married with your kids or a husband or a wife or and even to get onto that trial because it has so many co problems, like you have to go through all the medical questions. Like the questionnaire she showed me, it was like a huge. The
Mm,
questionnaire book was on because they ask you on neurology, on ophthalmology, on gynecology. They ask you on all the organs. They ask you questions.
yeah, interesting. I wonder, because you've been working with also the hospitals in a clinical trial, but also you provided an advice as a patient advocate. Do you think that I mean, how different is the advice that an investigator can provide to a company for the clinical trial compared to the patient advocate's advice?
The patient knows himself, knows the disease,
So you
definitely
don't
knows
think
the
that
disease.
investigator will give the same advice? Like if, for
Only if he
example,
knows it. Only if he knows it. And not all investigators know all that. All that.
mm,
So that's why I think they should talk to more patients. That's definitely the reasoning for it, to talk to patients or to have these round tables
but
before they start the clinical trial.
in the disease that you're operating in,
Yeah.
wouldn't doctors actually be like really experts in this disease and know it all?
No, because it's a rare
No.
disease.
Okay.
That's another problem.
Mm,
It's a rare disease, and getting in national health, getting subsidized for a rare disease. That's a whole nother podcast.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And also, you mentioned that it's a multidisciplinary type of management of this disease. So
Right.
not every like doctor would know actually what happens with these type of patients. That's very very interesting. What are the top advices that top types of advice that you provide to a pharma company when they're trying to think about their next clinical trial in this disease?
The obvious is to see how many people have the disease, and also how many patients there are, how many, if they have enough, if the infrastructure is good enough to do the actual trial. Like now,
Mhm.
this new company that's going to start this next trial, they're scared that in Israel that there's not going to be enough infrastructure and there are not enough patients
Mhm.
because it's a small country.
Mhm.
So they keep asking me, and how many people do you have? And it doesn't matter how many people I have, how many people are willing to do the trial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very good point. It's
Yeah.
not only how many people there are, but how many people will be willing to join this trial.
Like the,
And then that will depend on actually what would depend on. For example, if this company decides to go in Israel, let's say that they decide there are enough patients in Israel, why would patients join on this clinical trial? And also why would patients not join this clinical trial?
um, one, they can't be bothered, or they're scared. What is this? They're testing me. I'm sorry, everything's beeping here. Everybody, what am I? What do you call it when they test on pigs?
Like guinea pigs.
What am I? A guinea
Yeah,
pig? That's the first
yeah.
question when I talk to my patients. That's the first answer. Always, always. What am I, guinea pig? What do you mean it's a clinical trial? Because I offered the dentist up the maxillofacial up north. She's like, just
Mm.
send them, Ori, send them. I'm doing everything. It's free.
Yeah.
We'll even give them the transport. We'll give them anything you want. They don't have to wait in line for the appointments because I hate waiting in line for appointments. They have to wait for appointments all week long. And they're all scared. What are they going to do to us? What are they going to do? I said, they're going to take your x ray. They're going to check your teeth. You don't have to explain to them. And some of them are really fearful because they've been to so many doctors that didn't know what was going
Yeah.
on. I have one patient. She went to a gynecologist a few years ago. She came to me crying, hysterical. She walked in. She said to them, "Oh, I have Gordon syndrome," and the doctor says to her, "Okay, we'll take out your uterus." Okay, 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
Okay, we'll take out your uterus. No questions asked. No history. She didn't even. He didn't even. She didn't even sit in the seat yet in the
Hmm.
clinic. She told me,
Wow.
and that's from that's what happens when they don't have the knowledge about it.
Yeah.
So, or they heard
Very
something
interesting.
about this disease. You have to take the uterus out, but you don't. If you take care of yourself, you don't.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking about Israel and clinical research, any observations of what happened like with Israel and clinical research now during these times?
very tough.
Yeah, tough.
We don't
Yeah.
have doctors. All the doctors, either they're out in the field in the war,
Mm.
or if they're not in the war, they're going abroad to do, programs and studies and whatnot.
Mm.
And it was actually on the news a couple of nights ago. The head of the Tel Aviv Medical Center who was talking is, we have a big problem. Half my doctors are not here in the hospital. They're
Wow.
out in the. We have two wars going on. We have one in the north, one in the south.
Yeah.
Half the doctors in the south, half the doctors in the north. Not all the doctors, but a huge percentage.
Mm. And that's like, how is this impacting patients?
Bad. You can't get. I have. I think I have something wrong with my rotor or something. I hit my shoulder, and I asked for an orthopedic doctor. They gave me an appointment in November. I said, we're in
Oh,
September. And so the woman said, you're lucky if he turns up in November.
wow.
So
Yeah.
it's impacting very bad. It's never usually we have one of the top medical centers in the world. Israel for
True.
medical is amazing, really amazing.
And coverage as well. I mean,
Coverage
like
is
we've been working on like global standard of care assessments, and Israel is always one of the top countries,
it
like
is
reimbursing all of the even like more like expensive type of treatment. So coverage is amazing.
nothing. I pay like maybe $20 a month, maybe, and I get everything, anything, even dentistry, everything.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
amazing.
great advertising for the country.
Yeah. People don't realize it.
So
They think, oh, the Middle East, oh my God, but it's not that way.
yeah,
I
yeah.
actually have a Bulgarian patient called me 3 days ago and asking if I could help her with the medical. I said, you really want to come? There's a war. And she goes, I don't care. I heard Israel is the best. My mother has
Yeah,
a heart problem. Can you please find out for me? I'm like, yeah, sure.
yeah.
An old patient from when I worked in the medical center.
Yeah, and there are like for example, in our like with my team, we've been working on a platform supporting patients like to
Mm,
find clinical trials, especially when it comes to fertility. Like these are the some of the best centers, like the most work being done in Israel. So I really hope that things will get better, and doctors will go back, will come back, and hopefully things will really improve. And or thank you so much for sharing
thank
all of
you.
these stories and being so like transparent. Hopefully, again, we'll continue another time with even more stories,
I hope
even
so.
more positive light, with
Yeah.
more research in Israel. And please take care.
Thank you very much, Maya.